Memoir's breasts. Clift was frustrated too. It was a period in which she later described herself as feeling she was losing her identity. There wasn't a scrap of time for her own writing. She was backstopping with the children and researching at the British Museum reading room, dashing down notes for the books that she and George wrote together once he got home. Late at night, if she glanced out of the tall window across the dark shadows, she'd see the outlines of all the trees in Kensington Gardens that her children were not allowed to climb. She writes of George Johnston needing Benzedrine to stay awake, barbiturates to sleep, and the inexorably circling fingers of 1,000 clocks spinning our lives away. Princess Margaret was on the front pages, smog hung around. Charmian Clift was a year past 30 to her husband's 42 when they threw it all in for their Greek island. Their children Martin and Shane were 7 and 5. The yearned-for catalyst to escape was a BBC documentary about a scheme to take the island's unemployed sponge divers to Darwin to revive the ailing pearl industry there. Their families would join them later. For a novel that would feature bravery and macho divers, and set on the yearned-for Mediterranean island, it would also be a story of emigration. Unfortunately, the pearl diving scheme was abandoned shortly before the family were due to leave London. But I've already cancelled the winter coal, so we'll have to go. Charmian Clift insisted they go through with it. She tells us she thinks of her children as hostages as the plane takes flight from London's Guernsey cow-coloured skies to Athens. Her voice is immediately engaging, the guilty word hostages arresting. Caught bang in the middle of the awkward hinterland between Simone de Beauvoir and Germaine Greer, her thoughts about children and the role of their mothers remain at once strange and relatable. Ovid describes how it was flying over the honey-rich island of Kalymnos that Icarus found confidence in his wings and began to rejoice in his bold flight. For Charmian Clift, too, as noted by her insightful biographer, Nadia Wheatley, it was on Kalymnos that her writing took off. Once the novel about the sponge divers was out of the way, written mainly by George Johnston, and with gusto, "Roll over Hemingway," she wrote to friends Pat and Cedric Flower at the start of the year, she was able to find a portion of time. Unshackled from the collaboration, her own words found their form. It was a tricky metamorphosis, according to Cedric Flower, who was staying with them for part of the year, and whose drawings grace each chapter head of the printed copy of this book, who claimed that George Johnston rankled when she fought off his suggestions to make her writing more colourful or catchy. Life on the island is tough. Its honey days are done. Outside her window, the rhythms and traditions seem almost medieval. The sight of a crippled young diver, his legs twisted from the pressure of the deep, makes her weep and wish to leave. The island's children are starving, and the onus for survival falls heavily on God. Her style is immersive. She brings us with her into glimmering rooms, to orthodox ceremonies and rituals that are rooted in paganism. She's writing events as they happen, with fresh, thrilled eyes that take in the important small details and are not blind to darkness. She is fascinated by the position of the island women, and women generally, notes at a Kalymnian wedding that the bride is still padded around the cheeks with puppy fat, and compares marriage to human sacrifice. Her thoughts about her own children always strike a reverberating note. One night, for instance, a macabre youth runs along the waterfront, wearing only a lace curtain topped by a German helmet, and afterwards she worries, as she watches them play and fly kites, that they are only pretending to be normal. There's ecstasy later, as she glories in the children's freedom and her own. She wears trousers to the tavernas and drinks with the men, despite that it's an island where even lipstick or sitting in a cafe exposes a girl to moral danger. Best of all, she insists on writing her own book. She often deploys acid wit. She compares the swaggering